I made a book with AI because I was bored. Notice how I say made and not wrote. Let's get this out of the way because I don't consider using AI as writing. Typing a prompt is more writing than what the AI puts out. While I do some writing, they're usually essays about ideas and not narratives. To get back on the topic, I mainly read mangas and manhwas and I became disappointed with the landscape of storytelling. Everything feels like copy-paste trope slop that just followed templates of isekai, reincarnation, regression, villainous, or game-like systems. Maybe I just got tired of plot driven narratives, but works that are considered deep and literary don't particularly interest me either. Most of what's considered literary just repeat the same existential problems and ambiguity, but with lyrical prose. Maybe I just grew up, but nothing really registers as profound anymore that makes me think about life. If you're passionate about writing and storytelling, then you should still go through the process of acquiring mastery. I've used AI extensively, and I can say AI won't be able to replace high level human authors. It can generate competent prose and simulate voice, but it's not very good at micro nuances of psychology and subtext. This is primarily where extensive editing was done on my part. The story I made is in first person and has many POVs, so prose isn't as important compared to character voice and psychology. However, using generative AI with third person POV will lead to generic sounding prose or a copy of another author's prose. Authors, in quotations, have even been caught leaving ChatGPT prompts in their books, trying to imitate a certain author's style. AI has been increasingly becoming more competent in making generic stories and is even winning awards and bestsellers. But that says less about AI and more about the state of writing and literature. Let's not pretend that humans have this unique essence to imbue a piece with inherent value. That's the authorship delusion many authors and artists use to cope. While I do art myself, it's more so a hobby, so I have little to no emotional investment in it beyond the subjective joy it provides me. I don't particularly identify with my hobbies beyond their description. Even the book I made came from my dissatisfaction with the current stories being pumped out. It was made for my own entertainment. As far as I know, people seem to enjoy it and even resonate with it. I've uploaded 30 chapters on Royal Road and Scribble for free, but you can buy an ebook or a paperback on Amazon of the full book if you're curious to read the rest. But for many artists and authors, their craft is their identity and livelihood. They use this idea of human essence to abstractly elevate their craft. AI doesn't invalidate the top 10 to 1 percenters of artists and authors, but it has raised the bar to become a professional for everyone below it. Let's be honest, once you commodify your craft, it becomes a product. Many, if not most customers don't care about the human essence of a piece because it has now become a product first. Of course, there will be those who are principled and value the abstraction of imbued human essence, but only catering to those drastically limit your capability to become a professional. When art becomes a product, abstractions like imbued human essence no longer apply. Because be it AI or human, it inevitably becomes some form of slop. In writing in particular, it manifests as trope slop. Media these days is oversaturated with low effort, formulaic, and cliche storytelling elements designed for high volume consumption. That's slop. Majority of genre falls under the slop category. While AI has recently begun to win awards that cause rules to be retroactively changed to disqualify AI, the perception remains the same because there aren't any exceptional pieces of AI writing. Not yet, at least. These awards don't mean much because it's competing against other slop stories that just so happens to be traditional. AI will most likely remain in the slop category because the majority of people who use it simply don't have the skills or vision that a traditional author would normally have. Most prompt curators won't produce anything elevated because they skip the steps that would normally provide the necessary basics for good writing that comes from the rigor of traditional writing. There may be exceptions in the future that bypass tradition, but as for now, this seems to be the rule. AI at the high end will produce average to above average works at best, but nothing, maybe rarely ever, exceptional. I know because I use it extensively, and the passages it generates are convincingly good at first glance if you're not trained to spot insufficiencies and limitations. Even if there will be a piece that is an exception that uses generative AI in the process, how much of it will be attributed to the AI? Probably near zero because an exception does not make the rule. Most of what made it exceptional would go to human curation and editing. AI will forever be a slot machine by itself because it prioritizes median outputs. It will prioritize safe and predictable patterns without heavy human intervention. The majority who rely on AI will be skill capped by AI's capability, but that also means traditional purists now have a higher average benchmark to strive for because AI lowers the skill floor needed to produce stories. Literary doesn't escape this either. Many of literary circle around the same existential problems: meaning, death, identity, freedom, alienation. A lot of it is just restating the problem over and over with lyrical prose that often hover in ambiguity instead of certainty. Maybe it's just me, but layers and layers of abstraction and irony is at best performative profundity. If we're being realistic, most people don't care about producing something exceptional, be it traditional or AI. They just want to produce something fun and entertaining. It just so happens traditional authors sacralize their craft into an identity to defend. Critique of generative AI as slop is starting to fall short because much of traditional literature also falls under that slop category. It just hides behind the abstraction of imbued human essence. My biggest fear is that the rise of AI will discourage would be excellent artists and authors, that it would stifle would be excellent individuals. Many who don't possess the necessary skills and are still developing might feel discouraged to push their craft further just because the skill floor has been lowered. That much of the cultural contributions will just be regurgitated slop of everything that came before. Real valid criticisms of AI isn't even in the slop it produces, it's everything surrounding it. I'm overall indifferent to AI. Its potency as a tool makes it equally corrosive if misused. You can see this in how it's affecting education and reading comprehension. Things like RAM prices and its effects on the environment. Even the way these models are trained often come from stolen work of artists and authors. Again, AI succeeding says less about AI and more about the current state of literature and storytelling.